Ms Legalista here. Welcome to the video. Now, I've talked in the past about the Chrisleys and gone through their letters and talked a little bit about the bank fraud and some of the issues. I've talked about restitution. I've talked about them looking to get pardoned by President-elect Donald Trump. Well, what happens if they do get pardoned? If they're out early? Well, there's all this restitution that has to be paid back. And so they got to go out and get jobs. Julie Chrisley was recently resentenced. They thought she was going to get a whole lot less time. It didn't happen. So now the Chrisleys are really excited about the prospect of being pardoned by Trump. But like I said, if that happens, it's not like they can just walk back into their previous lives, right? Not likely. The show, non-existent. Some of the contracts that they have, gone. So what are they to do? Get a job like the rest of us? Well, let's think and talk about some of the options that may be out there for them. Now, they had this show before, and it could be that one of the networks or one of the streaming services says, hey, let's do something together and see if we can make some money off of that. I don't imagine that the Chrisleys are going to want to run away from any of that. They may want to definitely take some time to build back up their family, but they've got this debt hanging over their heads that they have to pay back. So if somebody like Netflix or, I don't know, Peacock Plus or Paramount comes calling saying, hey, let's do something together, they may very well opt for it. And if you're one of these networks or streaming services, you may want to hedge your bet and say something like, you know what, let's do something like a We're Back special, see how it goes before we jump into the deep end of the water with a full series with episodes and with a whole bunch of money and a long-term contract. It could be that they want to start out with just a special. That would help put some money in their pockets and would help pay down some of that restitution, especially if they can then turn that over into something like a series. Another option for them might be, tell-all book. Now, they could tell all that they learned while they were in jail. They could tell all about how their family has been struggling and how they're now trying to put the pieces back together. That could be an option for them too. But a publisher may sort of say, I don't know if I'm really sure about hooking up with the fraud family. They may turn their noses up at that. Well, self-publishing is very much a thing now. People have their own websites because they have their own brand and their own audience. The Chrisleys could very well say, you know what, skip those publishers if they don't want to work with us. We're going to sell direct to consumer, direct to people who like and follow us, and we'll make our money that way. They could set up a website. They could have their own podcast talking about some of these same issues. And that's assuming that nobody else wants them. But they could do both. They could have deals with large entities, like I said, some of the streaming services, and they could do their own thing on the side. And I can imagine in this case, they're probably going to want to jump out there really fast to start earning some money so that they can have their living expenses paid and so that they can pay down some of this restitution. Now, I can imagine that there may be some restrictions once they're release, depending upon what kind of release takes place. There might be some restrictions on what they can or cannot do, but we'll see how that goes. I want to go to this article that actually gives us a little bit of idea about how much money they have to pay back. We've thrown out some of the things that they can do, but how much money are we talking about? Well, in the beginning, with the bank fraud and tax evasion charges, and then ultimately being found guilty of that, we were looking at over $17 million. That's a lot of money. One of the articles that I'm looking at, just to sort of sum this up, says the amount Julie Chrisley must pay back was significantly reduced recently. Originally ordered to pay back $17.2 million, her restitution was reduced to $4.7. So that's a big reduction for her, and that will likely make it a lot easier to get that paid back sooner rather than later. And like I said, I threw out some options there, everything from book to podcast to another show. There may be some difficulties in finding parties that want to work with them, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. Go back and look at Martha Stewart. She was able to definitely come back around and is now on, I don't know, is it Netflix? I can't even remember. I think I may have to go do something on her. So that sort of sums things up, what their options are, how much money Julie needs to pay back. Hope that gives you some information there. Let me know in the comments what you think their options look like, what they ought to be doing, what they ought to be planning for. If they get this pardon and they get out of jail. Don't forget to like, don't forget to follow, subscribe, depending upon where you are. Mwah. Peace.